Do you think that the developments in the robotic application industry are on the verge of a similar development, a similar pathway to what's happened in smartphones in the last 12 years?
I think, there are 4 billion smartphones today. Yeah, if you predicted this 15 years ago, that was not the number they predicted. We have 3.5 million robots today in industrial robotics, which is not actually a lot if you think about it yet. At the moment, it's predicted by 2030 there'll be 10 million. I actually think it's going to be beyond that. And why? Because I think there'll be a step change in the market and ability to build solutions using robotics that will lift the whole market. And there'll be more robots, ROEMs, more robots sold in that next period. And I think we'll move to SME, not just to traditional industrial. And I think from there, we'll also move to consumer. And why? Because people need solutions now using robotics and automation in a way they didn't pre-COVID.
The iPhone, basically, why it exploded? Because it's easy to use. Number one. And number two, it built an ecosystem around developers which added a functionality to that ecosystem of iPhones or Android phones. And I think there are similar development in robotics side. So we need to make it as easy as used as possible, because currently the limitation is not the number of robots which can be built. The limitation is how many people are capable to program a robot. Currently, the world loves IT, but it runs on OT. So how can we make a lot of people in the IT world being attractive to do OT workload and to benefit for benefit of industry?
Sami, how big could this market be?
In my imagination, it's huge, which means billions of robots at some point in the world. I could argue that we already have a lot of robots in the world, right? I mean, we not only have industrial robotics, we have some personal robotics. We have more and more robots in, for example, in logistics, enormously growing since the pandemics. We had robots on Mars, we have robots in the OR, we have more and more robot cars, right? So I think this is the numbers that are steadily growing. So I think what we need to make sure is that the technology we're developing has use for humans. So I think it's really important that we put the functionality at the front. So is it mobility? Is it some manufacturing steps? Is it support in healthcare? What exactly can they do? Like a trained person, right? And as a last point, maybe just to make this very clear, smartphones were originally telephones, right? So we were communicating. That was working already, roughly, right? So we had smartphones or telephones before smartphones. So I think, again, the functionality argument is very clear. So you need something that people really want, that they use, and then you can build ecosystems around it. If it's something that maybe has not the perfect use case, then maybe there is something missing.
There are essentially only two ecosystems in the smartphone industry with iOS and Android. How many ecosystems, platforms are going to exist for the robotic applications?
I think the platform story and interoperability that has to happen in robotics and automation is only really expanding today. I also think this is where the parallels break down a little bit with the iPhone and Android phone, in that there is not just one device in this ecosystem. Yeah, there is not going to be like one reference design that plugs into an iOS for robotics and automation. So there needs to be a lot more interoperability actually between all the platforms in play, which is actually a good reason. For example, we actually did the partnership recently with Siemens, because we knew that on the IT side and the robotics AI side, we were strong on the interoperability, but on the OT side of more traditional PLC type devices, we weren't. And we thought, actually, we need to integrate that. Most people want solutions with all types of devices and the IT OT together. That's just a good example of where we actually need to become more interoperable as an ecosystem. And there will be room for many players, I think, in that.
They're all users of robots, the customers. How should they view what you guys are doing here?
It's our job to be easy to interface, such that, and be open.
From a customer perspective, the limitation is, can you integrate that robot into a complete automation solution? If you have repetitive tasks on high scale and known tasks, there you automate today. I want to automate in the future the unknown. I want to automate something which I didn't know what to automate when I was writing or kind of implementing the system. And there you need AI, and there you need then maybe skills, and then Intrinsic believes in the skill concept, we as well. And how can we maybe then combine skills, leveraging new technology in an easy way, but you make it as easy as possible to maybe really in the future automate the unknown. I think there is a very interesting journey, and then let's find out from a customer perspective how that creates value.
As a born scientist wants to share, we want to share knowledge, we want to create knowledge. One major question that the community will have, I guess not on the science level, but on the industry level, how do they fit into this ecosystem of ecosystems, and how can this really become a model that they understand?
How will you convince them that's the way to go?
I think we will share the value of that. So when I talk about a market growing, we don't intend to take the value off the table ourselves, all of that. I think the idea is more we're enabling. Somebody wants to add a particular skill, let's say a vision skill in, or they actually want to add their device in with the skill. We would expect to share the value of that. If per application deployed or per robot deployed in the real world, with those providers, yeah. So it's not going to be us that takes that value. I mean, obviously we take a small amount for the enabling and the distribution of that platform, but we actually expect the rest of the ecosystem to take the extra market value that grows from this.
I think what we need to do, I mean, maybe economy, the sharing or open source sharing, I think industry standardize. And we need to standardize because else we will not scale. And we need to find ways of, where you put standard interfaces in, everybody can access. Data should be accessible to others because data don't lose value when you have used it. Others could use it as well. And, when we talk about skills and things like that, how can we standardize? How we can standardize on a communication? How can we standardize on skills? And then basically everybody can participate because standards are there.
How can we get to more standardized solutions, not only standardized components? Because there seems to be still a lot of way to go from the standardized software and mechatronics components to the actual solution, and having a solution that is, good enough for industry, but also broad enough to be deployed to many other solutions in a way, or other use cases in a way. I would love to understand your thoughts on that.
Some of the breakthroughs we really looked at was in the area of, for example, real-time force feedback and vision. So you can see and touch and feel in real time, right? If you can do that, you can actually take a more generalized process and actually react in real time to a situation. So you don't have to be so specialized in that. And I think that's changing. And so what we've done is create a framework where we can, but also other people can add almost AI-driven skills, and we put the infrastructure underneath that to support it. So the compute, the perception and the sensor skill base to do that, and data. And I think that's going to step change the industry as well. Much like, maybe the parallel there is even in things like ChatGPT. There's now a big race on to whether you can move towards generalized artificial intelligence. I think that parallel will move into the physical world. That's the next bastion. Can you take that learning into the physical interaction of the world? And I think we will. And I think that will create more generalized solutions.
Will you wait for standards to be developed, or will you essentially make de facto standards?
One of the reasons we actually partner with Siemens, because they do really understand standards, and we're going to run with some of the standards they're looking at.
Waiting for safety, I think we sell 50% of our large PLCs with safety integrated. So it's not a niche or something like that. It's already kind of mainstream. And what we do also in the combination with robotic, for sure you can have a controller and you combine it with a robot and you have safety signals. There is Prof, which is a standardized protocol, and we're using that and we're building that more and more into more functionality. But it's not at all waiting. It's, in my opinion, it's getting standard. It's not a niche.
And how will you integrate that into an ecosystem that will work with Intrinsic?
I believe in the future you have skills or standards, whatever you're gonna, and maybe on the standard one topic, I like the process industry. And with MTP, they basically said this could be very specialized, but you have a standard. OPCOA with companion spec moves into standard. Inside, it could be very specific and very dedicated, but at least you have a standard you can communicate and get right data. And I think if you then combine skills, there are functionality with safety inside, and you combine them maybe with skills which are not safety, but in the combination it's going to be safe.
We actually have architected our stacks such that we use OPCOA. We're going to be adopting things like asset administration shell as a structure the same as Siemens already uses. That's partly why we're more interoperable already.
But now we have to discuss also, because of having Intrinsic here and Siemens on stage, how do we make the collaboration and the interaction of robots and humans such that they really can integrate safely in a not only industrial environment, SME, and potentially in a service robotics environment. I guess this is really where we all want to go. To acknowledge that the pull from big players in robotics is maybe not 100% there yet, so it would be great to see you guys really pulling the robotics industry in the sense of saying, look, we want to be the ones empowering humans and machines, collaborating, coexisting, interacting in a way that is not only safe in the classical way, but in the modern way, right? In a way where they become tools, where we, it's not just we're sitting next to each other, robots and humans, and, being suspicious of each other, but really being a team.
Yes.
So I think this would be fantastic to see this opportunity that's obviously here on stage, right?
That's a research topic, and we are doing that because we want to develop safety further. I mean, there are a lot of areas where you could apply safety, and applying safety in combination with AI is nothing easy. I think we are not there yet, but for sure we are working on. That's not yet solved, but there are trackways where I think we are in a good way.
I think the vision you're talking about robots and human working really collaboratively and human trusting, actually, robots now is actually really, really important.
What has to happen for robots to become suitable for everyday use?
There needs to be a way of experimenting on that to move the, to be honest, the algorithms and the safety standards forward to play in that space. So I'll give you an example. Even our beta is open from later this year, and one of the things we're hoping is that it won't just be limited, to be honest, to industrial form factors. Yeah, we're not form factor dependent. So whether you use a mobile robot, a static manipulator, a humanoid robot, we don't actually mind. You can build your own skills in to actually manipulate them. But we do know that we're going to need a safer sandbox to actually play with, to actually move forward service industry and a consumer. And I think actually, as bigger players, that is something we can look at, is can we create those sandboxes somehow and shift, quite frankly, whether it's government or bodies to actually let us do that.
I know that we need to have the acceptance. We need to get robots which will have skills, which are trained, basically that they can automate the unknown. And we are doing that, like we have an AI app, flexible grasping, where we exactly do this. We need to develop this further. So we need to find ways of how it's very easy to integrate, or you need to, if you train it, you train really with only a few samples. Because else it takes too long time, the effort is much too high. So either without training or a few samples need to be doable, and I think then it also scales more in industry.
I also think the change in, to be honest, computer vision, intelligence, and touch force feedback will make a difference in real time. So this is the thing we've designed in terms of our controller, is that you can have that real-time feedback. That will also make a difference in how well you can interact with human in real time. I think that is also going to be the step change. I
mean, having robots with sense of touch, I think, is really the biggest breakthrough in robotics, because they don't only want to talk, they don't only want to move, they want to do stuff. And in order to come from the age of information, where we come from smartphones, into an age of action, where robots are doing things in the real world, it's not only about observation by seeing and maybe communication by talking, but by really, using the sense of touch and doing something in the real world with a high-performance central nervous system, you can say, right? So I think this is 100% the way to go. At the same time, having said that, I think we really still need to take that step, because if you wander around in automatica, then there is many things that are still on the motion level. But I think what you guys have in your mind is really democratization of physical skills. Which means, and I know Stefan Schaal is also here, who has been one of the foremost AI persons in robotics that I know when I was a PhD student still, and he has done many of the fundamental work there. And I think we all agree that this is really one of the most fundamental things we need to do in robotics. To give our robots these aforementioned skills, they need to be interacting with the physical world, which means sense of touch, which means force control, compliance, and in particular safety around objects, the environment, and humans, obviously.
How will you encourage the people who manage these shop floors, these engineering companies, to make this transformation.
Why was a PLC so successful? Because it was speaking in the language of an electrician. You didn't program, you basically did a wire diagram and then you programmed it. Yeah, that was why it was so successful. And the question now is, how can we make it as easy as possible for people which can do this with a little upskilling? I wouldn't say it's for free, but at least a little upskilling that they can use it. And that must be our goal as industrial companies, to make those complex technology as easy as possible, but in an environment where you have people which are currently running machines, running industry. And that transformation is important. There are some good steps into that, but that's going to be crucial.
You know what is kind of funny? I'm just thinking about my president coming in 20 minutes or something, and I'm going to tell him, you know, at TUM what we're doing right now is we want to build a new master's program that is designed to bring engineering and computer science together into a robotics and machine intelligence program. And I think what is the greatest argument that I just realized is to say, you know, Siemens and Intrinsic were on a stage and I was able to listen to that, and we need to do it today and not tomorrow because we are still hesitant in that. So I really think that the skilling of not only the workers but even the academics is really important. I mean, I remember when I was a student, I had to do CS and electrical engineering, full programs, to become an engineer and a computer scientist. And I'm still not sure which brain to activate every morning, right? The software person or the engineering person. And it's really important in robotics that we need to look at this traversal, discipline that is emerging here. And I think this is so fantastic that you guys are kind of, showing that German engineering, Siemens, and US, let's say, AI software-driven business is coming together, and this is kind of what robotics is about, right? So not robotics today, but hopefully tomorrow. And I will take this away and push that through so that, in maybe 1 year we're going to have an international masters that is going to integrate that so that we can produce the best engineers. No, robotics. What do we call them, by the way? Roboticists? The best roboticists for the German and European market.
Maybe, but I think they'll almost be application engineers. I mean, maybe the thing to end on here is the hybrid integration of skills as us as human beings. That's what the ecosystem is. So our team, for example, it's not an accident that I'm a software platform person. Brian is a roboticist software platform. Stefan is a professor in the academic side of force feedback. Torsten is a controls expert. We have literally had to come together to have any chance of integrating this. And I'd actually say academically you're right. I don't think there's anyone there, right? So in fact, one of your colleagues, Daniel Ruckert, was my department of computing head at Imperial College.
Now he's at TUM, right?
And now he's at TUM.
We're very happy to have him.
But I think your point is right, is that there needs to be more hybrid education to meet this hybrid world shift that's actually going on right now. And actually, we should multi-skill folks. So the mechanical engineers can also be process engineers. They should be able to use our interface already, actually, because of the process engineering side. But I think as an ecosystem, we actually do need to work together to step things forward. And why? Because there's a bigger imperative right now in the world, which is technology and AI is fundamentally going to change the world in the next 5 years, not in the next 20. We have climate problems now. We have geopolitical problems now, and so we better solve some of these things together now, and not worry about staying proprietary in our backward looking into how our business models used to work, because that's not going to help us moving forward.
Thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. Unfortunately, we have to break it here because, like Sami said, the president of Bavaria is coming. Somebody's got to
say hello. We have a president.
Could you?
I think the minister is coming.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Rainer. Thank you all for participating. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ken.